Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first round of a new series and a new bout of chaos with Simufur, our multi-class madness series. A much maligned, much awaited series for depending your perspective, as we're going to be throwing our fastest drivers in the slowest cars, and in the opposite end of the spectrum, our AMs are going to be taking control of the GT3s for 4 races of chaos as we start off here in Brands Hatch. The session or practice has just concluded, and we're going to be rolling out into qualifying here for what is going to be a little bit backwards for some of our drivers. Pros taking out their M2 Cup cars at the start of the session are going to be followed up shortly by the Silvers in GT4. And finally, to conclude the session, our GT3s are going to take the track piloted by our AMs. So a very, very backward session for many of our drivers, but nonetheless going to be chaotic, tight, and hopefully very, very action-packed on a track like Brands Hatch.
Yes, and given that we're going to have 3 classes on what amounts to be quite a small track, there's going to be some action going here, and I'm looking forward to see how the AM drivers actually handle the traffic that's going to be ahead of them. Given that, Brands Hatch, it's nice and wide for the most part, but once you start getting into those high-speed corners, especially with the pace difference that these cars have, it's it's going to be a challenge for them, to say the least.
Yeah, it's going to be a big challenge, and we are really starting off with a bang, starting the season off at Brands Hatch. We'll eventually transition over to Indianapolis in 2 weeks' time, followed up by Silverstone and Coda, which are much more known for their multi-class racing, or at least being larger Grand Prix style tracks. They're used to having a little bit more space. So Brands Hatch gonna be a testament to our drivers' skill and ability to navigate traffic. But we're gonna take a look here at Azure, who has taken the track first and is gonna be the first to navigate our Brands Hatch circuit. As we roll through the final corner here of Clark Curve, 9 turns, but doesn't make this track any less challenging. Azure Goat's going to take the straight down into the very, very famous Paddock Hill Bend. Hard on the brakes, later than you think you can, and just tipping the car into that apex. Let the car run out wide as your car's understeering the whole way out. Hard on the brakes into Druid's Bend. Then trying to tuck the car into this apex curbing. Very, very easy to lose the rear by just overcooking it. Into the double left of Graham Hill Bend, and then a short little straight followed up on the run to Surtees. A lot of action takes place in these 2 corners, deceptively hard as we roll through the very, very tricky Surtees corners. Turn 4, really important to get good power. This is the longest straight on the track as you run down Hawthorne Hill towards turn 5. Plenty of iconic battles that have run through here, and the very, very fast right-hander of Hawthorne's Bend, one of the fastest corners on the track. Very easy to get pushed wide here if you're battling side by side. And into turn 6, tuck it in. You can take a lot of the inside curb and a lot of the exit, but that is very, very punishing if you push too wide into those outside barriers, much closer than they seem as you roll up into Dingledell and Sheen Curve. Turn 7, another corner, very easy to wash wide, and then tuck it in very early for Sterling's Bend. Turn 8, this corner very, very fast compared to what you would think. That camber really sucking the car in into our final Clark Curve. Another corner iconic for some of the battles. MotoGP hosting some fantastic battles through the final corner here that lead on to our main straight. So as your goat to set the first time of our session, which appears it will be a 1 minute 37 flat for the 765. That is the benchmark to beat, but an important note is these TC cars do not have tire warmers, so they are going to only get faster as this session goes on, and only 10 minutes to set that time.
Yeah, and I also want to point out, if you just check out the speed, he was reaching in the, I believe it was the Pilgrim's Drop, just about 211 kilometers per hour. It's going to be interesting you take a look at what the GT4s and then GT3s after are going to actually be able to do, as we see that Caffey looks like just managed to set a 36.8, and then we got some times coming in as well. Harper coming in with a 1:36.8 as well, just a little bit ahead of Caffey, and Simon with a 1:36.3. So they got to push out that times quick.
Absolutely. And I think something that's going to be important to note too is the slipstream effect of these cars. You spend a lot of time on the straightaways with the lower power format of these machines, and it's not easy to gain a lot of time in the corners. So a lot of these drivers are going to be matching each other through the corners, and then whoever's latest in the train typically is going to be gaining the most. You don't see a lot of that in our GT3 racing that we typically run on ACC, particularly because the dirty air effect tends to offset the cars a little bit. Anything that you gain on the straight is typically lost at about the same amount in the corners. But these M2s, almost no aero. So aside from that tiny rear wing you can see on the back end of it, which some of our drivers probably would appreciate some air being lifted off of that, getting a little bit more oversteer. These cars are quite tricky to drive and very, very understeery, but need to be very committed on the brakes to get it to rotate.
And so just a note for all our viewers here today that are watching on the timing tower screen, this is a multi-class race, given that all of these drivers are put in a specific class in which they're going to be racing against. So they're not necessarily racing against the faster GT3 cars if they're in the M2 class, or the GT4s are racing against the other classes. And so if I can point out, if you take a look at our timing tower here, you're going to notice that the M2s, when we have all of our cars up, are a bit more teal color if you look just in the corner of their position counter on the left side. And then our GT4s are going to be in dark blue. Another indicator for that is these classes are actually separated by our Simufur class of Pro, AM, and Silver drivers. And so our Pro drivers, as we see here, are in the M2s. Our Silver drivers are going to be in the GT4s, and our AM drivers are going to be in the GT3s. And you can see that on the color of their number. Whites are Pros, reds are AMs, and silvers are gray and silver.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not going to be a statistical nightmare for anyone as we roll through all this, trying to sort out everything. But yeah, it's going to be quite an interesting format. All these drivers are, of course, fighting for their in-class positions, as we can actually see the pro class leaderboard kind of filled out here, as they're the only ones to set a time. Simon Luck still setting that provisional pole time, but I'm seeing green from quite a few drivers so far. Caffey and Caffey and Azure Goat are both on big improvements, which could put them both on provisional pole once they're closing out. This lap is very wide there from Simon. Very, very dangerous place through Dingledale, or onto the Dingledale straight there. That could really set the car off, but navigates 30s. I think he may have backed off a little bit, as I'm seeing that car kind of just lose a little bit of attitude.
Yeah,
just set up for that next lap.
I think he invalidated his lap there, as we're going to go ahead and switch over to Caffey, who's just finishing what looks to be a decent improvement, and indeed it is, up 4/10 to now a 136.425, putting Caffey now in second place. And Simon better watch out, but oh, it looks like Caffey's pulling over, maybe trying another run before time runs out for them.
Yeah, I mean, just trying to sneak it in. I mean, I think we still have probably about 2 laps for everyone, 2 minutes 30. So if they're getting this lap, they'll pick up one more. Of course, once that timer runs out for any of the uninitiated, they still are able to finish the lap that they are on. There's no requirement for these drivers to immediately pull over. They are still obligated to, of course, finish the lap that they have started. But that being said, you still don't have a lot of time with 10 minutes. We talked about these tires only coming out basically on ambient temperature. That can prove to be a real challenge for a lot of our drivers that try to go out and set just a quick lap on low fuel, maybe 3 laps. Well, if you need to go out and get those tires heated back up again, you really only have one chance. You'll expect most of these drivers to put in a bit more fuel, run it all the way to the end. But I think we're seeing a little bit of strategy come out in qualifying here.
I think we lost Caffey. I saw her time disappear off the qualifying board.
Yeah, it looks like it. I'm not seeing Caffey is connected to the server at all anymore, which is going to be quite tricky, because that means they have a very small window of reconnecting to the race. At least during qualifying, you are not allowed to get back into the server. They can try to come back in between qualifying and the race, but ooh, that could be one of our main contenders, already struggling with some scary moments, but they certainly won't be improving up on the timing sheet, which I believe they were in P2 or P3.
They were in P2, I believe. They were only a 10th off from Simon Lunk's time, going for another one. I did notice, though, that we seem to have had a late joiner that may have caused a lot of our cars to be frozen on track for a second, as I saw a lot of yellow flags come out at once. But we're following Hyper here. It looks like a good improvement so far. Up 2/10 coming through the line here, back on Brabham Straight. And will it be a good improvement for a position jump? Indeed it has. Back to P2 where Caffey was, and now Harper is taking that position.
Yeah, quite the improvement. But again, still one more lap, another chance to set an improvement. There's still some green down the field as well. Wushel is currently on an improvement for her. She comes through. Where is she coming through? Actually, going through or 5 there, going towards turn 6. That's going to be Westfield. As we roll down that draft we talked about, looking like she is at the end of a 3-car train, actually possibly the second to last car in a 4-car train, depending how you frame it. So this could be a big improvement for Wushel, number 69. Coming through the first 2 sectors was looking at about a 2/10 improvement. We'll see how she's able to get through Clark Curve, one of the easiest corners to kind of misjudge. You take in a lot of entry speed, brush it all the ways out to that exit, and that she does. You can see only millimeters up to that grass there, and a very good exit from Wushel. So looks like we might see an improvement, and that we do, pushing her up to P5. But this is going to be the final lap for most of our drivers as they cross that line. So we're going to see the transition over to those GT4s coming out as a couple of our drivers just finish up their lap in TCX.
Yep, now we're following Zazor's going around with Mercedes AMG, and now so we have a slightly faster set of cars. Not as fast as the GT3s, of course, that's why there's this class, but the speed improvement is definitely there as we follow along. They were moving out just as all of the M2s were finishing their laps, so everyone just trying to file out nice and easy and get started. Maybe warm up their tires a little bit, make sure they're up to temp before actually starting their hot laps.
Yeah, the GT4s drive much like the TCXs in the fact that they are very momentum-based cars. Quite heavy machines, not a lot of aero. Still a lot more aero than what those TCX cars had of the M2 Cups. But it's still quite a tricky car to drive, as we see. I believe that is Dipping Sauce in the 38 just finishing up, as well as Newton the 272. Don't see any changes in position from those two, so just, I believe, more of a formality. But we're going to run through at the 406 of...
Well, I think that's
almost said
Araz.
Azure. Yeah, I almost said Azure, but Azure's already completed his laps. That's Oraz in the Ginetta. Probably feeling very at home, the British car at the British track. Probably going to be one of the strongest tracks for the Ginetta, I'd have to imagine. This nimble little machine tends to lack a bit of horsepower, but you don't need any horsepower in this track, as it is all corner to corner to corner. You can see, actually, the rear end getting a little bit loose as we ran through Graham Hill Bend there, tucking it into Surtees. You can hear that engine, the transmission just whining, and yeah, the power just getting cranked through the rear wheels as it tries to rotate the rest of the way. That Ginetta's a very, very fun car, and Oraz has been quite a fan of the Ginetta from what I can tell historically.
Yeah, and just a note, as you can see, just slight speed improvement there. So instead of 211 that the M2s were doing, hit about 220 kilometers per hour off of that Pilgrim's drop. So, you know, there's a speed difference there. It's small, but it's enough that if you catch up a car into a corner, it could cause problems, as we see, just dips her tires in the grass there. Oraz coming around Sterling's, just making sure they get the car nice and straight through the clearways. Ooh, that was a close one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we talked about. That's a very, very dangerous corner coming through Dingledale and Sheen Curve. Very, very easy to drop the car. So well recovered for Oraz, maybe not losing too much time. I think that's really the only thing that they're going to lose, or maybe a little confidence through that corner. But they picked up after a lap or two as Oraz comes through and sets the fastest first lap. Of course, they're the first one to cross the line, but it looks like so far their time is holding up quite well, as the next 5 cars have yet to beat their pace. The closest being Sauce Dragon of the AMG drivers, who is currently sitting at about 2/10 off at a 132.8. It looks like they're actually at the back of the pack. Maybe a little bit of draft tactics going on with the GT4s as well. As actually, I think they're backing off just to find a gap.
Yeah, and you want to make sure you have, you know, you make a good enough gap where you can still take advantage of maybe a little slipstream. But I think Sauce Dragon's just backing off more, maybe cooling the tires, may have ran them really hard after doing that 32.8 on the last lap. Just wanting to make sure you get around, everything's all nice and cool, get your head back on straight. As meanwhile, if we go back to Oraz is on another flyer, back to back, up 0.3 from their best time of a 132.6. Right now, Lost a couple of tenths looking like coming through from Sheen's into Sterling's, but still on pace to do another fastest lap. We'll see if he can keep it up through Clark Curve. We see Arez coming through right there, hitting the apex. You want to go out a little wide. Whoa, on the edge, on the limit. That's where you want to be. Looking like up 2/10 on an improvement. And indeed, a 132.44 for Arez. Fastest times of the GT4 so far.
Yeah, there's quite a big slide, though, from Orez coming through Sheen Curve, so he's going to know that he can pick up a little bit more time, and it looked like a drift car coming through turn 7 there. The same place that we would have seen him get a little bit of a moment coming through the lap prior as well. That's where he dropped his left 2 tires off, but looks like already looking like another improvement, a 10th through the first sector so far, but there's also a couple other drivers looking like they might be piecing together a couple of first sectors and maybe trying to challenge that Ginetta, but he right now looks like the 406 is the car to beat.
Yeah, the Ginetta looks really strong through this course. It really looks more or less planted. The tricky part, of course, you're coming into Sheen's and even then through Westville Bend, it's always that outside part of the track where the grass is. You have all the weight there in the car, and you don't have any weight on the tires that are on the track, and as soon as you get it on the grass, you're most likely to lose your rear end. That's why it's so difficult to string a really good lap, especially through those corners, because you make one little mistake and there it goes. Although you could say Arez is not worse for wear here, as they're up 3/10 coming through Clark Curve again, coming through the back straight. Could this be 3 in a row for improvement? We shall see as Arez crosses the line. And indeed, it is 3 in a row, a 132.0. You think Arez is going to try to get to the 131s?
I think so, but hold on. There's another car with over a second improvement through the first 2 sectors. Zizor is currently with a massive improvement, and Zizor is going to come in and steal P1 provisional pole, going to the Mercedes with a 132.0. I think starting to get those tires in the operating range. The GT4 is another class that doesn't have those tire warmers, so these times are only going to keep getting faster. With Zizor's right now starting to posture themselves as being able to challenge for that pole, is looking like everyone else is sitting over 3/4 of a second adrift, and Zizors and Orez have just decided to run away with this pole challenge.
And it looks like it's back and forth. Could be any of them. Arez is not having much of an improvement right now, currently even on their time coming through. I believe they're at around Sheen's right now. You look at Zazors coming through Pilgrim's Drop, also just on the level of their own delta. They're just nipping and clawing, trying to see if they can best each other. Whew, what a fight so far.
Yeah, I think we're really starting to hit the phase where these tires have come in, so now it's just about finding your own driver's improvements. Zizor's going a little wide and invalidating there. Quite dangerous at this stage of qualifying. You can get away with it early on when your tires aren't up to temperature, but now's when you really need to be piecing together those laps, because they were on a very, very small improvement, and that right now, I mean, the gap's sitting at 4/100ths of a second. That gap could easily be what the difference is coming to qualifying, or to the close of qualifying, and that silver class pole, because these GT4s seem like they're very, very well positioned against each other as well. I mean, whereas looking like another improvement just to start off the lap, coming through that sector 1 line there, sitting at just about a 1/10 improvement. And then as well, you can already see Zizor's just with that live timing update looking like a small improvement, tipped up to about a 1/10 of a second. So both these drivers looking for some kind of improvement. Looks like they will get this lap plus 1 more. Oh, and a big slide coming in from Orez. It's going to hurt their exit quite a bit. So this lap is going to have to be full send, or maybe try to settle those tires down, but that's not going to be good for this individual lap time, as a big, big gain coming in from Zizor's behind, and that Mercedes looking at about 2/10 coming through the first 2 sectors.
Yes, and as you saw, Arez, I mean, that's what it takes. It just takes one little mistake. They're probably only going to have 1 more lap after this, so if I were Arez, I'd just focus up and make sure you can do this 1 flying lap, as Zizos looks like they're putting in one heck of a lap. May break the 131s if Zezors keeps this pace up. I also want to note HDDBC in the number 81 car managed to take third place from Sauce Dragon with a 132.74. So these times are pretty close as we watch Zezors coming in through into the last corner now through the clearways around Clark Curve. Now this is the one you have to nail because you need all that momentum. Just barely puts it on the edge, and it's still up on the timing sheets. We shall see as Zezors crosses the line and makes a 131.882 in a GT4. A stonker of a flying lap for Zezors.
Yeah, I think Zezors was quite happy with that. You could see them dive to the line on the inside and basically give up that final lap as Orez is now pushing like a bat out of the underworld, trying to get that Janetta to just squeeze a little bit more time out of the car. And it looks like they're starting to recover a little bit, but they're down about a tenth through that first sector line. We'll see how they take it down to the second sector, but I don't think they've really gotten enough. About tenth and a half sitting off the pace from their own lap and a little bit wide. That's going to be their qualifying done. I mean, you can't blame the 406 as they were putting literally everything on the line, and there's nothing to lose. You're already sitting in second place, so you're just trying to squeeze out that pole. As we take a look with Vex, who's already up a couple of tenths coming through that first sector line as we run down the hill towards Hawthorne's Bend, looking like you're going to be setting about a 5/10 improvement. This could be quite the jump for the Camaro as we roll through into turn 6, taking a lot of curb. You'd have to imagine, yeah, all the curb, the car almost taking to the grass on the inside there. And this car actually looks quite hooked up. Maybe just needed a lot of time to get those tires up to temperature. This Vex now has to just navigate 2 more corners to go. Sterling's Bend is going to be probably the trickiest corner for this. Yeah, it looks like the car almost drifting through there with our spectator perspective, but looks like this car is absolutely getting hooked up in the final sector. Clark Curve, the final one, get that power down early. The Camaro loving this, living a quarter mile at a time while that final quarter mile is coming up as we take the run down the main straight. And it'll be quite a jump from Vex from P8 to P5, a full second improvement. And that's going to be closing out the GT4s as now the GT3s have already taken to the track and getting done that outlap as we're going to see our Ams start to take their fight for the overall pole position of this race.
Yeah, and this is going to be the tricky part. Now we have the AMs on the track here. They just need to control the car and be able to lock it in to set what would be a good time for them. Now, the skill level gap, you know, not too big. I mean, the differences between the Silver and Pros and AMs, well, we have a, you know, variety of all drivers. The times are pretty close. And so here they get the freedom to try and express what they can do in this machinery. As we see, we start their first flying lap. We had a few of them coming out already, of course, as the GT4s were finishing up their runs. And so we see here Weiss coming up to Druids going down. You can see just trying to keep the car underneath them just as they come out through Druids into Graham Hill Bend. And so if we can see as they come through here going down into the Cooper Straight, coming through Surtees, we're going to take a look and ride on board with Weiss here as we're going to take a look at the speed difference once we come up. He's taking it real easy, just making sure the tires are nice and warm, making sure everything is good. And so you can see on the bottom right hand of your screen, so we're reaching already 200 kilometers per hour, 210, 220, 230, 240 before heading through Pilgrim's Drop to Hawthorne Bend. You can see the speed difference is absolutely monumental.
Yeah, no, massive change, but it's important to note too. So our difference in pace between the top GT4 or the bottom GT4 time and the top M2 time is sitting at about 2 seconds, maybe about 5 if you take the poll for each class. Well, the difference in these GT3s to GT4s sitting at about 8 seconds once these GT3s fully get up to speed and start running about pro level pace. It's sitting at about 123s, and our pole position time for those GT4s sitting at about 131s. So this is going to be the biggest speed difference on track as these GT3s now throwing the cars around 126s to start getting these cars set up. but we're already seeing lots of green as everyone starts to kind of build up that confidence, get a little bit more comfortable with these cars as we see Snowdog take the provisional pole for the first round of laps, but going a little bit deep in Druids. But early on, not too big of an issue as they're just trying to get these cars set up, get that temperature into the tires. Last thing you want to do is get a little bit of graining by pushing those tires a little bit too hard early on, scrubbing the surface and not having that internal temperature built.
And, you know, knowing tire temps, especially for the AM drivers here, it's going to be quite a challenge as, you know, when you're first driving, especially in these GT3 cars, maintaining control is the main priority. And sometimes you scrub off tire wear for that, just trying to keep the car under control, just learning how to push it, learning what the limits are for the car. And so the challenge is going to be over the long term, how well they can keep up their consistency as this race runs along. As we see Snowdog on an improvement. Sarah did improve their lap time to a 126.0, a 126 flat. Snowdog, must have made a mistake, pulled off, and looks like they're going to restart as we see Derg, the Bluey driver in the Ferrari, just manage a 125.992. And just to point out, if you look at the fastest times between the GT4 and the GT3 class, the fastest time was Zezor's with a 138.8. And the fastest time right now for a GT3 is a 125.9. A significant, almost 5 seconds. No, actually, yeah, a 5-second difference between the two.
It's only going to get bigger too because Derg is already up on their delta, 10th.5 through the first 2 sectors. Didn't look like they had the best 30s coming out, but there's a lot of green coming behind them as well. So these times are only getting faster as these drivers position those tires a little bit better in the window. You're going to see a little bit more tire management coming from the GT3s and a big spin from who was that? I can't really tell. I think that was Pescetti.
Not sure. That was a 279 of Swingley, it looks like, that went around. But amazingly, Snowdog did not invalidate their lap through that, and while they lost some time, they still are up a few tenths. Wow.
Yeah, I think that would be a crime to have had that lap invalidated because through the first 2 corners, or the first 3 corners of that sector 1, Snowdog was already sitting up by about a 4/10 margin, but a big bottom out of Sheen Curve. That's going to be kicking the rear end around as we see the fastest lap after fastest lap Zephyr, then followed by Derg taking the fastest lap. And we also see Snowdog still was on an improvement, but how have we been able to take it through the final sector? It hasn't been the cleanest final sector as we roll through to the main straight, and no, it doesn't look like Snowdog was able to improve, but still, again, behind them, plenty of drivers going green and green as we see actually a Lappy on a big improvement as they're rolling through. They've already rolled through the first 2 sectors at about a 6/10 improvement. As we roll through into Sheen Curve, we saw a big bump from Snowdog that took away his lap as he rolled through the Sterling Curve or Sterling Bend, as it looks like that Lambo actually took to the exit of the corner quite well. And we're coming into Clark Curve one more time, rolling through, open up that throttle all the ways up to the exit. The arrow really pushing those GT3s into the ground. So Lappy looking like they've set quite a strong lap. It will be an improvement. Yes, it will. That will push them up to P5. Still about a 10th.5 off of another further improvement to Snowdog, who on their own already is sitting at a 6/10 improvement through the first 2 sectors. So we roll through once again. This is where their lap was taken away from them. Oil Rags getting another big improvement. Sterling's Bend, we need to see Snowdog just complete the lap, tuck it in, open it up, let it run over that curb a little bit. But it looks like a lot of bouncing once again, just too much curb for that Porsche, and it looks quite upset over those bumps, maybe just running either a little too stiff or just too aggressive on that track limits usage. But Snowdog looking for a run to the line, and that run to the line will still put them P1 even after that rough sector 3. So we're seeing times get thrown back and forth here with 1 minute 40 to go. Everyone's looking at about 2 laps left, but man, time is running out and tempers are certainly going to be flaring as they try to push these last tenths of a second out of these cars.
Yeah, some of these AM drivers are really trying their hardest to keep these tires on the ground and yet fast to the corners. Snowdog, a perfect example of this. If you take a look right now between the difference between Oil Rags and Snowdog, it looks like 5 thousandths of a second. Snowdog with a 125.732 and Oil Rags with a 125.737. A nose, a bumper makes the difference right now as we see Snowdogs coming through Hawthorne Bend right now, up 4/10 from their last best lap and still improving. Coming up to Weiss though, so we don't know if some traffic can be involved. We hope that Snowdog will be able to finish this lap because he's on an absolute monster of a lap coming through right now to Sterling's. Down the clearways, just has to make it through the final corner, already up half a second. Could we see a lower than 125.5 here? We shall see as Snowdog comes through Clark Curve and down the line, up 4/10, just trying to push it, make it just a little bit more. And does with a 125.2, an impressive lap from Snowdog.
Yes, but right behind them, the 83 is looking at a big improvement through the first sector, was already looking at several tenths. I believe it was about 3/10 as we roll down, but I think they were a little bit deep coming through Surtees. It will be a big challenge. Yeah, only about a tenth as they cross the sector 2 line, and we roll through Hawthorne Bend. So the Aston Martin's going to have to push a lot out of this final sector. Not sure how it looked for them before, but the time surely is there as Snowdog was able to find it. That's where a big improvement came from the 919, but it looks like the Aston Martin just pushing everything out of the corners. You can see all that track being used on the exit. No, well positioned from the 83, able to get the run out, but Clark Curve, this is the final test of the Aston Martin, rolling through early on power, get the car driven out to the exit and using everything, even a little bit of grass. Is it enough for Oil Rags to take the pole position as we run to the line? Yes, it is. 125.252 just to sneak the pole position right at the dying minutes of qualifying. And still another improvement from Derg behind. Sarah's looking at a possible improvement as we roll through, and this could actually even put pole position in threat. 3/10 up through the first 2 sectors as we roll out of Sterling's Bend in a big slide, but that isn't the end of the lap. That can still be saved as we roll through Clark Curve, quite narrow on the entry, but early on power to get it driven out. A decent run out. I don't know if this will be enough for pole with that slide, but still likely an improvement. Yes, to P3, but Oil Rags takes the pole position at the dying seconds of qualifying. Snowdog may be kicking themselves for not taking that last lap, but man, the M's did not disappoint. Even with the GT3s, them being the highest class, they did not disappoint at all.
What an amazing run at the end. And as you can see here at your timing screen, the difference between first and second place was less than 0.04 of a second. Oil Rags with a 125.25 and Snowdog with a 125.29. Very impressive. Very impressive indeed. And as a matter of fact, looking at the times here, it seems like all the way up to the top 6 are less than a second off from each other. So we're going to have quite a race here in AM today, it looks like. What an amazing drive from these drivers so far.
Yeah, I think it's important to note for anyone that doesn't drive multi-class, getting that pole position is quite important. But after that, your pace doesn't really matter much, especially on a track like Brands Hatch, where traffic is going to play a very, very major factor in how you drive this track. It is going to basically manage almost all of the gaps until the final kind of closing moments of the race if you find a gap or somewhere like that. But most of the time actually comes from if you can navigate a car faster than everyone else. Because you're only going to gain, as we can see, a couple tenths, if even that. I mean, what, a tenth between the pole position and pro, and within that half a second covering the top 7, sorry. That's it. Easily could be lost by a traffic at the wrong time. So it's more important for you to navigate this traffic correctly than it set that fastest lap now that we're going to transition over to the race session. And of course, a 17-car grid for the M2s that is going to cause all kinds of havoc for our silver and pro drivers. I think the GT4 is really going to have an interesting time with it, as the gap between them and the M2 is only about 4 seconds on average. That's going to prove to be a really big challenge for some of these silvers.
I just want to point out, too, if you look at these pro drivers in their M2s, the difference between first and 14th is a second. There's You can't get more closer than this. Almost the entire field is within a second and a half each other for the pros. So it's going to be traffic management. It's going to be how these guys can utilize the traffic to their advantage. And for the AMs up in GT3, it's going to be who can navigate that traffic the best. Because guaranteed, these pro drivers are not going to hold. They're not going to hold punches here. They're going to go at each other, and I'm super excited to see that.
Absolutely. And I mean, even as we roll over to GT4, those top two cars that were really proven to be a bit of a challenge for each other. So the battle for the lead in each of these classes is going to be very, very interesting. And of course, the mid pack is always chaotic as usual. You can, if there is two things that are certain in life, it is taxes and death in the midfield. So it is going to be very, very interesting to watch this as we have three individual mid packs. And of course, they're all going to be interacting with each other as we look down on the track from above. Brands Hatch, iconic circuit, as we see an iconic pole position from Oily Rags, taking that pole position from Snowdog by less than 500ths of a second at the dying moments of qualifying. That Porsche is going to be lining up on the outside, but they're going to be followed up in row 2 by Sarah in the Mercedes-Benz, which seems to be quite a popular choice across the classes, and they're going to be lining up alongside the ever so lovely Ferrari 296 of Derg, only a quarter second back. I mean, this is really going to prove how close this GT3 field is, especially in the early stages of the race. The only time your pace is going to matter, so watch for Derg to look to get some kind of move early on. As we go back to row 3, Zephyr is going to be taking that Le Mans Viper themed Mercedes-Benz to P5, and they're going to be lined up alongside Windows Explorer, also known as Wolfen. Of course, all of the names taken here from the Discord, so you might see some things get thrown up, of course, with some of our meme names that pop up. They're going to be lined up right in front of Lappy, who's going to be taking that Lamborghini back into P7, and they're going to be side by side with Biscotti, the 242, and the ever popular Mercedes-Benz. Actually, quite an interesting livery there. I am quite a fan of that D20 pattern that's on the hood of that car. Electroshocks is going to be filling out the number 75 Porsche in the first of row 5. They're going to be lined up alongside the room 366 of Weiss. Right behind them, Swingley, with who we saw with a very big scare in qualifying, spinning out right in front of Snowdog. They're going to take that Porsche to P11, and they're going to be lined up alongside by the final GT3 of Tiki the Wicker Beast. Of course, going back to our pole position and GT4, and the first car in row 7 is going to be Zizor's, the number 6. They're going to be lined up alongside Orez Volpez, who took the challenge to them, but lost out at the dying moments of their own qualifying session in that 406. That's going to be the front row of your GT4s. Then the BMW, not a BMW M2. This is the M4 GT4. It seems a little bit deceptive, but this is not the Cup car. It's going to be lined up in P3 of HDDBC, and they're going to be lined up alongside Sauce Dragon, who we saw being an early challenger for that pole position. So look for them also to make another run early on in this race. And then the quarter mile pair sitting behind Vex and Skylar Vixen, the 222 and the 660, are going to be filling out row 9. And they're going to be traced by Juan V, who's taking that 911 Porsche 718. That's not contradictory at all. I'm not judging. I'm just judging silently. They're going to be lined up alongside Parcho and the only KTM, I believe, of the field. And the GT2 car proving to be very popular, but rolling out the GT4, quite a challenging car as we roll through the Maserati of Cohen in the first of the 11th row. They're going to be followed up by Simon Luck in pole position of the M2s. Then we jump back to Harper, who is proving to be quite close to Simon rolling through that M2. I believe they were less than a tenth off of each other, and then they're going to be chased by Azure Goat, who again another hard charger at the start of races. To keep an eye out on them, looking like P3 and 4 really looking to make advances in these races. Ty and Fox in P25 and Wushel in P26. They're going to be filling out row 3 of the M2s. 13th row overall, going to be chased by Taichi Yagami and Denak, who teammates of TGR are going to be taking those M2s in row 14. They'll be chased by Newt of Bluey and another Tig Gang racing driver, Vossi, who are really sandwiching Newt. There's a Newt sandwich there with some TGR bread because you named it by the filling, not the outsides. So thank you very much to anyone who tries to correct me on that. I will fight you. They'll be chased down by Saber Kitsune and Randomi, who will be filling out row 16. Suzuka Shark, the team principal of Paliku'i, will be filling out the 17th row, doing quick math in my head there. They'll be chased down by MNU underscore around their outside in the 808. Dip and Kvik will be filling out row 18 with the 38 and the 123, and they'll all be followed up by RK and the 25, who did not take qualifying due to just joining late. You would have seen them disqualified on our timing screens. That is just due to joining mid qualifying, but they will be a very interesting driver to watch, as they are known for their pace and certainly are going to be trying to prove it early in the stages of this race, as we get our cars lined up side by side to get on route to start this race. Clearways, that bridge underneath, as all the cars are going to emerge, the rumble of V8s, flat sixes, inline sixes, you name it. Every one of these cars is ready and rearing to go as we roll through Clark Curve for the first time in this race, and all of our drivers transition up to those 5 red lights. We see a little bit of a gap forming behind what we roll up through the main straight one final time outside of racing speed. As we get all of our cars lined up, you can see everyone just trickling in to get closer and closer, and rolling up to the start finish line.
Green light, green light.
And our cars are free, and away we go. And a great start from Snowdog, taking the outside. Oily Rags not able to keep that Aston in gear, but a little bit wide coming through the sand trap. And it looks like we're going to be side by side going to Druid. Zephyr trying to look for a position, and it looks like they were able to get undertaken by Sarah, who's now taking this battle to P3. Going down to Graham Hill Bend, we still sit 2 wide, maybe 3, a little bit wide for the lead pair, which might open up for the rear. And it looks like we have a car back, the 75 Porsche, going off in the background as you go through Surdy side by side. Snowdog not wanting to give this up under any circumstance, and taking that lead position, finally able to get that to stick. And now Oily has to look behind as the Mercedes-Benz Zephyr trying to take a look going up Graham Hill, or sorry, Hawthorne's Bend, as we roll through, and it looks like a little bit of contact for the 83 going wide off track, and that's going to be several positions. What I believe now dropped down to P8, and a spin for Zephyr as well. Oh, goodness me. All of the GT4s, I believe we may have had a safety car called out, as all these drivers have rolled down to pit lane speed. So code 50 out already. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to need a breath for a minute here.
Yeah, no, we had what looked like a pretty major incident here. It looks like in the back of where the GT4s were sitting, started with, I believe, 660, 47, and 81. I'm going to see if we can get a replay of that. Let's take a look while they're all shuffling here. This is going to be on the number 73. Let's take a look and see if we can see what happened. They're coming in through what looks like Druids right here, and we're looking at Sauce Dragon here right now. Looks like coming through, and everyone's kind of just back up. Oh, yeah, we look ahead as we see. I think that's the BMW of... Oh, yeah, we can take a look at the pileup that's going on behind them as it goes back live. I think my timing screen just managed to pick that up in the background there. But it looked like, let's see, the number 660, 55, number 7. That was just one big cluster coming out of what looked like Graham Hill Bend and Cooper Straight there.
Yeah, and you can see the chaos already kicking off from some of our GT3s that fell down the pack, as well as it looks like it's going to be Tiki trying to take it a side-by-side with Zephyr as they try to navigate their way back out of this GT4 traffic. And it's certainly going to be an early preview for
we got another
chaos
incident in
to
the back.
Oh, yes, 2 cars spun around. The Maserati and I believe the Chevy of the Camaro. Who was that? That is Skylar, I think, in the background.
I think it was Skylar. Everything's kind of just falling back to the screen. And Vex, yeah, I think Vex was the unfortunate procurer of that one as well. Let's just go ahead and take a quick look. I think this one I do have that we can look back at. Let's take a look. This is on the restart, as we saw. There's Vex coming through. Looks like alongside, I believe that's Werschel.
I believe that's Wushel in the M2. So possibly an incident up ahead as the
Oh,
car's
yeah,
going
looks
wide and,
looks like
just taken out
Azure.
by the 32.
Oh yeah, Azure
31.
Azure kind of broke hard, it looks like. And it looks like then Vex kind of tried to slow up and then was rear-ended in the back by an M2. Yeah, that's the tricky thing about these cars. As we see Lappy now live, looks like they just had a spin going through Pilgrim's Drop. Wow, just everyone just trying to stay on the track here right now. It seems like it's going to be difficult. That's not Pilgrim's Drop, that's the clearways through Clark Curve. Wow, seems like you're keeping your nose clean is a viable strategy here today.
Yeah, absolutely. As we expected already with the traffic to play chaos. I mean, not all 4 minutes into the race when everyone was supposed to have their short period of just being able to drive on their own. As we see another car going slowly. I think that's Wolfen.
I think Wolfen also had an accident. I think I have this and I can pull up on the replay.
Yes,
There's accidents everywhere right now. It looks like it was a rejoin, as we can see here on the replay. See, Wolfen was just trying to rejoin here. Yeah, it was just going slow. That's what our flags caught. Might have spun right before. And so just trying to rejoin there. Wow, just everything happening all at once right now.
Yeah, but I don't think it takes much imagination to know what happened through Sheen Curve there. Taking too much curb too early on, easily lose the rear to the inside wall. It's very, very easy to just have the car just drop out from underneath you. Oh, as we see a big bounce and two cars going wide. I believe that's Biscotti as well as Electroshocks going off there. Swingley, actually.
No, that's
sorry,
Swingley, yes, yeah.
Biscotti in a Mercedes. I'm still trying to learn these cars, but oh, jeez, you could already
Zephyr
see the
looks
chaos
like
that's coming
spun.
through. Oh, yes, and that's through exactly what we just talked about. Clearways causing, or not Clearways, sorry, Sheen Curve taking another victim as they're already being chased down now by the Lamborghini of Lappy. And so our timing screen is going crazy right now. The cars are changing positions faster than I think we can keep
It looks
up
like
with.
I'm trying to see. I saw Skylar had looks like what have been a minor incident with Newt, but looks like they went ahead just fine. Dip also went off as well. We can't even keep up here. There's just so much going on.
Oh my goodness. And as we can see, looking at our timing screens too, Arcade's already up several positions going down into P28, the number 25 starting from last on the grid, already in the top 10.
Swingley's going slow. Looks like they went outside again. That looks like coming through Surtees. It seems like it's a challenge to keep your tires on the ground right now.
Absolutely. We see them being chased by the 366 of Weiss, I believe, is now going to be falling through a surprisingly clean looking car so far with all the chaos that's been going on. But yeah, we've seen that Porsche's really struggled coming through Surtees, so gonna definitely be a corner to look out for once we go through, and actually going through Sheen Curve very, very deep. Probably just missing our brake marker, but really just showing the challenge of Sheen Curve and what it can do to the car. We've seen several of our cars already lose the rear end, but of course going wide, they're even easier to do if you're not too careful. And I think possibly even a brake issue coming through, because going through Clark Curve, that's not the heaviest of braking zones. So I can only imagine there might be some kind of mechanical issue going on.
And we're going to go back here. We're going to actually take a look at Azure, because this is an actual battle for position after all the chaos going on. Azure right behind Taichi has just been following him for the past bit, trying to catch back up. We'll see if Azure can make the move. Azure has been within a fourth, a third, just trying to catch up with him. And as we can see here, if we take a look at our pro driver standings right now, we have Harper that actually managed to make it through everything right now in first, followed by Werschel, Taichi, then Azure, then Simon Luck right behind. So for the pro drivers, they've thankfully seemed to have been mostly uneventful, aside from the few incidents into turn 1, I think on lap 2.
You say that, but Simon's lost several positions in that M2. You remember starting right up on that front row, and now they've already dropped down to P5. So quite the fall from grace coming from the number 31, and that's going to hurt quite a bit. I wonder if that was caused by our code 50 that we had to bring out, and maybe some of the previous incidents. All it takes is for one car to kind of get lucky. But look at these cars line astern. Every single car with about the same gap as actually Taichi gets a little bit of a mistake, and that could be the opportunity that Azure needs as we roll down through here. This is the closest gap we have on track as Azure's trying to slipstream up. Going through Hawthorne's Bend, though, that's a very hard place to send the car around the outside, especially in these M2s. almost no arrows. The GT3 behind is going to be looking to make an opportunity. Taichi with a bad exit coming through Hawthorne's now into Westfield. The BMW just trying to get through on the baby BMW.
Oh, and just
Azure takes the overtake and just sneaking in front into that podium. Taichi having to concede his 3 BMWs and 1, and oh, then the BMW ahead is a little bit wide. And never are we going to get a break through this race.
I don't think so. And as you can see, this is what we're talking about, trying to take advantage of the traffic. I think Azure knew that that BMW was coming up, the quicker GT3, and so just tried to line up the move so that when he went on the inside, the BMW or the GT3 would have no choice but to follow him on the inside, keeping Taichi on the outside. As I see what looks like coming through right behind, we got more traffic. As you can see, the Maserati coming through there. I believe that's Cohen. I believe. No, I don't think
he's the
so.
only one crazy enough to drive the Maserati, so you might be right.
But I mean, looking at everyone now, it seems like things are just slowly starting to ease out between the cars here. Aside from Taichi and Azure, they're still at it.
And I don't think that gap will change too much. Taichi's very quick to adapt to what's going on throughout the race. So, ooh, a big slide, though, coming from the number 32. So, it's still a tricky car to drive, this M2. If you are not on top of it, very easily can step out and you lose a lot of momentum. We actually saw a little bit of a gap up here between the 765 and 32. But Taichi definitely looking to close that gap back up as the chaos of this mid-pack decides to continue to sort out. And actually looking at our timing table, those reds, all of our AM drivers seeming to be about in the same pack, but looking back from P11 down, the silvers or the grays are our silver class drivers, the white is our pro drivers, and look how mixed up that pack is. We expected the M2s and GT4s to trip over each other a bit more because of how close they were in pace, but I mean, it looks like half of each pack is within each other, and I don't see any way that this clears up through the rest of the race.
No, and you can see by looking at the view here, our wing camera on Azure, that's Taichi right behind, and then right behind him is Skylar. And Skylar's trying to get, you see flashing the lights, just trying to get inside, just trying to make their way up. The pace difference is not significant enough, but it's not going to stop Skylar from trying. As we take a look, Skylar just gets by 2 M2s just trying to make their way back up through the traffic.
But take a look at the ebb and flow of how that worked. Taichi was sitting at probably about 4 or 5 car lengths back, but because Taichi got overtaken on the straight, just a little bit in the braking zone, but Azure got sent going into Druids there, Taichi was able to close that gap up completely and is now right underneath the rear wing as we see the battle for the GT4 leads actually kicking off. A big slide for Oraz, just keeping that Janetta on track from Sauce Dragon, who actually has promoted themselves from P4 all the way up to P1. So an interesting development up front in our GT4 pack as Zizors actually has traded positions with their RRP teammate and is now sitting in P4. But regardless from that, Azure looking for some kind, or Oraz looking for some kind of move around the outside here going into turn 1. And actually that Janetta is able to power its way past the Mercedes, who's still trying to look out a move on the inside. But I think Oraz finally, carrying that momentum around the outside. A paddock kill Ben, a very, very brave move as we roll through into turn 2. And I think Oraz finally getting ready to settle in and just take that clean air ahead of them.
Yes, and looking at that, I'm not sure if Sauce Dragon had a bad exit coming through not Hawthorne, excuse me, we're over at Clark Curve here. Over at Clark Curve and coming down in, but as you can see, Ara is making quick work of the Mercedes GT4 and just using that Janetta. Look at that, powering out, or already almost a second and a half ahead. As we see Azure, looks like Azure had some sort of an incident coming through turn 1. Oh, just losing position after position. And we can see, we have a GT3, a GT4, and an M2 all sharing the same track at once here right now coming into what I believe is Graham Hill. Oh, just trying to get by. You can see the GT3 just manages to squeeze. And then we got the KTM behind. Oh, makes contact. Ooh, manages to hold on just by a nose, and Azure just sliding around, just struggling with all the traffic. Oh, we got Vossi. I think that was, no, that wasn't Vossi. Who was that Denak? That was Denak behind. Oh, chaos when traffic comes together, and Denak, that's some damage to the front of that M2 they're going to need to repair.
Yeah, but the M2s are not very sensitive to damage. We've seen it before in our M2 championship, so we're going to be able to see that Denak might be able to power through that damage up until the pit window opens. But that was our GT3 leader, that bright neon orange Porsche was Snowdog leading through, followed by the dragon liveried of Ferrari of Derg, who was just stuck behind the pack of 3 cars as we rolled into Surtees right as Denak had their moment. So the chaos is only going to get worse now. We're now seeing the first cycle of traffic, as I think only up to Pescetti decided or was able to cycle their way through. I think from there it's just a gap to the next car. So we're going to see some more chaos come in, as that was Weiss in the background, that bright red BMW. There they are in the foreground coming through Clark Curve as Denak struggles through, and it looks like possibly a move as Random is able to sneak their way in front with that bad exit coming in from the 54 TGR car, and immediately after, the bright red BMW of Weiss is now looming in the mirrors, trying to make a move as we roll down to Druid. So all these drivers, especially if you're in the M2s, especially if you're in the GT4s, it's eyes locked forward and rearwards. You need to use one eye for each direction, because from now on, this race is nothing but survival and finding the best spot on track for what you're given.
And I think that was actually the 272 of Newt that made the move on Denak. Randomy is still coming up about a couple of seconds back, but we're actually going to take a look. I'm going to showcase the replay here of Denak just so you can see from their point of view what they're looking at, because it's pretty nuts out there. Take a look through your camera here. This is all 3 classes together into one corner, and as you can see, there's the little spin that Azure almost had coming through and just manages to hit the gas too much and ends up into the wall, and that's all it takes.
Absolutely, especially at these M2 cars. A lot of our pro drivers will tend to run this car without any traction control, as it is a little bit faster, and a big move up the inside for Lappy that's going to actually stick the Mercedes behind, I believe, of Sarah, who's getting squeezed out by Denak, able to take the move around the outside of Sterling, so that's going to cost them a little bit of time. And you can see how these drivers need to work together to navigate the courses. I think that Skylar having a little bit of moment. I saw some dirt kicked up on the outside of Paddock Hill Bend there.
I think they just went wide just a little bit. But as we are going to go flashback here, we're going to go into Cohen and Leparcho. Looks like they're side by side. Leparcho and the KTM there trying to make a move on Cohen. Looks like they're coming right down through Jewett to Graham Hill. And they're still side by side, just trying to inch out that power. Leparcho just barely makes it, and looks like they're going to hang on to that move. We'll see if they can complete it coming into Surtees here. And yes, it looks like Leparcho is going to get the move done. Wow, what a move for position there in class.
Yeah, and then immediately the BMW around the outside of the Maserati of Cohen, just showing that there is no time for rest as we roll back through. It looks like Dirk now falling back in. Or sorry, not Dirk. Sosh falling back into the grasp of Zezer as their RRP teammate, who Zezer is now starting to make that charge back up through the field from what looks like apparent front-end damage. I believe they were caught up in that lap 1 incident that caused our code 50 down at Graham Hill Bend. Is a big slide. You can see at the bottom of the hill as the compression really yanks the car around in whatever direction you have the
something
wheel
happened to
turned in.
Swingley.
Oh, yes, in a slide. Oh, it's of course. We talked about it so many times. Sheen Curve just claiming another victim. Such an easy corner to make a mistake as the traffic swings by. Swingley actually doing quite a good job of getting that car spun around in a safe spot, and through Sterling's just driving it away. But man, that on top of all the chaos, Brands Hatch really proving to be a challenge for all our drivers as a whole, because a lapse of concentration for only a second, easily claiming yourself victim.
Yeah, we're going to take a look back here at Swingley, of course, coming down through what I believe was a Hawthorne there. Oh no, just trying to avoid contact with Weiss, it looks like, coming in through Sheen's, just hit the brakes too hard and ends up spun.
Almost took out Zephyr with them too, only a couple of inches between the front and rear as we go too wide going down to Surtees. A little bit of contact from Weiss as they fight Lappy coming through Surtees, the 366. Just there, nudging a little bit of spin from Lappy, I believe caused by contact from Sarah with the rear left. We'll have to see a little bit more, but that Lamborghini spun around extremely fast, and more contact with the wall as the dirt just spins up the tires.
It just can't get through there, and it looks like they're just waiting for traffic. This is possibly one of your worst nightmares when you're doing multi-class. I've been in this position. You come in, you spin out, you're on a place where you may be kind of close to the line, and you just have to wait for the track to be clear. It seems like an eternity for you as you sit there and just wanting to let it go. As I see, think Swingley went out again, but no, it looks like just went wide, going through Sheen's again. I am at this point just, it is so much going on. There's incident after incident with multi-class, and it's just, sometimes this is just the fun, especially when you're inside the car and you see an incident in front of you. You're just like, all right, maneuvering time, let's go, let's see if we can avoid it.
Yeah, I'm going to take a note out of the American Sports Playbook. And can we get a halftime show at about 30 minutes so I can just take a break and calm down from what's going on here? So we see Swingley try to make a move on the M2s, but I think I'm going to really need that break at 30 minutes.
I think I'm going to need it too. It looks like actually Newt went wide. Denak managed to gain a position, and we're now, I think this is the M2 class. Now, let's just check in on the M2 class right now, and we can see here at the moment we have Harper in first, Wershow in second. That hasn't changed, along with Taichi, and then Simon Luck, Azure Goat. As I see, I think MN underscore went off.
We just can't get a break, can we? We're just trying to cover the class as MNU's taking their time, finding a gap in the traffic. Well-behaved rejoin from them. But you can see even just one mistake in the pro class has dropped MNU from the mid-pack to the tail of the field as around the outside of Sheen Corner. A very brave move up the inside of Sterling's. Wushel chopping the nose of the
there's
KTM
some traffic
off,
there.
and
There's
then
some
we're looking to be
GT3 traffic.
rewind. Oh, goodness. Yeah, Swingley taking the outside. Now Parcho just trying to squeeze through. I mean, this isn't even for position, but it's like they're battling for every inch of their life on track. But now Taichi has a run around the outside of Wushel going into Paddock Hill. This is a brave place for an overtake, but keeping the momentum. Can Taichi maybe get the over-under on Wushel? Getting the power early now to the inside of Druids as we see the GT4 also trying to make a look, but Wushel trying to stick it through and losing ground. Taichi able to get that nose in front and clear Wushel with the aid of traffic. And that's all it takes, ladies and gentlemen, is just one car to upset your line, especially in these M2s, and it completely changes the format of a battle.
And that was for second place, for position, and that's exactly what we were talking about. Use the traffic to your advantage, and that was a textbook example of how Taichi used it. Coming out of Clark Curve, you need the momentum there, and if you're compromised through traffic, if you're right behind them, you can take advantage of it, and that's exactly what Taichi did. And yeah, I think I'm all for having that halftime show on this event, because my goodness, we are not even 25 minutes, we're not even halfway through this yet, and it's been non-stop action since the green flag dropped.
Absolutely, as we see side by side through Sheen Curve, with all the incidents that we've seen here, and drivers are still taking it into turn 7 at full commit, ready to risk any incident come heck or high water. But as we roll through, Wushel looking like they might be posturing to try to take that position back from Taichi. I think this will remain one of our closest battles on track throughout the duration of this race, as Taichi had to do quite a bit to get past Wushel, but I think the draft is actually really holding these two together as we see Snowdog coming out of the pits. As actually, if we've missed it, the pit windows opened up about 2 minutes with Taichi wide coming through Paddock Hill Bend. That's going to open up the door for Wushel to take the inside, and she will clear the 32 coming into Druids. And now Snowdog, the leader, or effective leader for GT3, just sneaking around the inside, now outside of Graham Hill Bend. And they're going to be looking to try to run away from this M2 lead pack, because that's only going to lose them time. But I can't imagine that this gap is going to open up any more than this. So we roll through the 75 of, I believe, that is Electroshock trying to chase down Pescetti, who has that bright neon orange Mercedes. Actually quite easy to catch that one out compared to some of our other cars. Thank you to the color choices on that. But they're going to be rolling through. It looks like this is actually the battle for the overall podium. You roll through Druids. There's going to be a little bit of traffic holding up Pescetti, and actually our podium on GT4 looking like it's getting in the way as well. So we roll through, and I mean, you can see these drivers just try to swing through traffic every single time. There's no such thing as the optimal line. We talked about your pace not really mattering much anymore, and I think this is the perfect example, because I don't think neither one of these GT3s have taken their preferred line for the entire lap, excluding maybe turn 1.
I don't think they were able to. I mean, you just take a look here. We're looking at what our GT4s along with GT3s, and you just can't take your line given all the traffic here, especially with the M2s as well. You know, you get a clear bit of traffic here. I mean, clear bit of track here, and then just in a couple corners later, you just end up into more traffic. It's frustrating as a driver, especially when you want to pass someone. But this is really when you got to not let the red mist descend and really take a look at how you can get by someone using that traffic. Use it to your advantage. As we see, whoa, looks like Electroshock went wide, and that's because Paliku'i is taking a pit stop. Ooh, maybe trying to undercut. So we got some pit strategy going on here on top of everything else.
Yeah, I think this is about the biggest bang that we could have started off with. The big bang, if you might excuse me for my terrible pun, because we are just sending everyone into the fire. So Electroshock's now inherits that P3, and they're going to be looking to form a gap. But look at this, the M2's just getting in the way. Looking like you want to go to one side, but no, they need to take their preferred line, and it's really the job of the faster car to make sure you move around that slower car safely. But Parcho actually having a little bit of an incident in the KTM, who currently is sitting in 17th overall, but I believe that is P6 in class. So looking like a little bit of time loss for the KTM there. They're looking at about, I think, 20 seconds of the car ahead of them.
We got another battle here between Wursho and Taichi.
Who else?
Who else? They're still going at it. I think we had an incident with Snowdog earlier, but we're going to just keep on this action. Taichi manages to get the inside line here, coming through Brabham straight, going around Paddock Hill. Oh, with exiting GT3 car coming in, almost made contact, manages to go 3 wide, coming down through Paddock Hill, manages to make it work and make the move. Well, that could have ended in disaster, but managing to make it look easy.
Yeah, make it look easy, but now, of course, you're going to see Paliku'i try to come out and find a gap in this traffic that they just almost had a collision with. I mean, not to any fault of their own. They're just trying to mind their own business and mind their own race. But through the inside of Surtees, that might upset Taichi's line, which means Wushel might look like they're going to have a run down the straightaway here. And actually, it does look like Wushel might have just got marginally better of a run, but I think maybe a little bit too far back. So traffic playing kind this time around, but of course, that's going to go back to our podium battle. Of course, Paliku'i, who we saw fighting for that overall podium position, they're going to lose some time to Electroshock, so that could actually have been the change of position that we just saw through the pit phase. But we're going to have to wait to see for the next, I think, 13 minutes we have left in this pit window to see if our drivers are going to actually take a swap of positions. But actually, I think it's the 38 of Dipping Sauce just ahead, fighting with Saber Kitsune. And then down the road, you have the Maserati. So again, no chance for a break for these GT3 drivers.
No, and I want to go ahead and ride on board with Paliku'i, as Paliku'i's coming in again. I wonder if they made a mistake. Yes, I wonder if they had a penalty.
I'm going to take a look, see if I can find anything on our race notes, but I didn't see anything pop up for them.
I didn't either. Oh, and Leparcho's off at Paddock Hill Bend, like way off. Went really, really wide there. And while you take a look, we're going to go ahead and just take a look at what happened with Leparcho. It seemed like they just went real wide coming out of Brabham straight. Take a look here. We see them side by side right now with M2. And yeah, it just goes really wide, hits the brakes a little bit. Oh, overcorrects, almost makes contact with the M2. Manages, though, to just slide into the sand, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any penalties coming in from anyone on my log sheet, so I'm not too sure what's going on in terms of that. Paliku'i may be forgetting to fulfill one of the requirements. Of course, it is required for you to take a tire change. So if you did not take tires, you will actually lose out. And on top of that, you do need to take just 1 liter of fuel. Very, very minimal, but just to fulfill the requirement. So if either of those were not met, You could see Pescetti have to come back down through the pit lane again, but no penalty that I can see, so I'd have to imagine there was some kind of pit lane mistake.
It might have been. I think so. Maybe that they meant to do something with the fuel. They maybe not have added as much fuel as they needed, or maybe they forgot a tire. I'm not sure. Sometimes with the UI that you use for Assetto Corsa, ACC, you can miss something, but you know that you just got to go back in the pits, take the wrap, and keep racing, because you never know what's going to happen, especially in a multi-class race like this of what we've seen so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very, very chaotic, and it's very even. We've seen ourselves tripping up just trying to watch the race. Can you imagine what it is for these drivers just trying to hang on for dear life as we see Swingley going wide through Sheen Curve? Talk about hanging on for dear life. They're going to lose that position to Weiss, who sneaks by in the 366, and I believe they're being chased down by Snowdog not far behind as we see one of the Camaros following through. Goodness me. Yeah, we're going to actually see the 366 coming through. There's a car in the grass there. I think that was Suzuka, if I had to take a guess off the top of my head. I didn't actually get a chance to see, but I'm curious what happened to them.
I think so. Looked like maybe just tried to cut into pit a little too deep, lost a little bit of grip. I'm not seeing any yellow flags pop up on my timing screen, though, so it looks like they might have avoided damage. They're A-okay.
Yeah, quite possible contact, too. I mean, that's been happening all over the track. Not seeing really anything though that might be coming up, so well, we'll stick with it as we have a couple battles on track. I believe randomly dealing with a battle as well.
Well, let's just first check in. We got Oily Rags here that seems to have been doing their best to be clean, and right now holds the lead going into pits now, but they have the fastest time of a 1:25.1, and it looks like in comparison to everybody else, they're up 5/10 faster than everyone, at least for their fastest lap. So, you know, now the lead's going to be given up as they take their pit lane now. We got Durg and Electric Shot up there, but I believe they still need to pit as well.
I'd like to point out how clean that Aston Martin looks right now compared to probably about 90% of the cars on track. Not a scratch on that thing. So Oily Rag's doing a very good job of keeping themselves clean throughout this race. As you immediately go to the 25 of RK. He's done a phenomenal job to drive that M2 up the field. Currently sitting in P3. I don't think that is effective P3 just due to the pit cycles, but look how damaged that car is. And RK is typically a driver that can to hold their own, keep the car pretty clean. So that just pays dividends to what chaos has been going on in this race, that our pro drivers are getting caught up in incidents. And actually, yeah, you take a look at our pit cycle here, that those ones or green lines next to the driver's numbers, those are drivers that have completed their mandatory pit requirements or not. Of course, you can come into the pits and not have served your pit change or your tire change or fuel fill requirement, and that will not be fulfilled. But any of those drivers with the green light do not have to come to the pits anymore. RK, unfortunately for them, still has to serve that, and that will possibly drop them behind. I believe the first 3 cars in the M2s that have fulfilled the requirements of Harper Jackson, Simon Luck, and Azure Goat, who are all completed that in line of stern.
And I believe us also, if you look at the AM class right now, Snowdog probably has the effective lead of the race at the moment. As you can see, Electroshock and Durg up ahead both need to take their pit stops. Durg right now pulling in has made their pit stop. I believe something happened to Lappy. I'm seeing something pop up on my timing screen, although they look like they're doing all right. They're doing fine. So yes, right now, effective lead of the entire race goes to Snowdog.
Yeah, I'm seeing there's possibly contact between them and actually one of the GT4 cars that might have popped up. So, but it looks like their car's fairly clean, so I don't think there was too much. Maybe just a little bit of door banging that has been very, very prevalent throughout this race. I think all the drivers just trying to survive, if I'm completely honest. Yeah, quite a few drivers coming through. 7.5 minutes left in our pit cycle, so right after then we'll start trying to get a sit rep on what is going on, who is where, because admittedly I think it's pretty hard for anyone, unless you are just a driver focusing on, or just a crew chief focusing on one driver, to have any idea on what is going on around you. Actually, it looks like GT3s have mostly sorted themselves out. Electroshock's just being the final driver needing to take a pit stop as Lappy's going a little bit wide in Druids. But yeah, there's GT3s, the AMs decided just get it out of the way early. Just don't want to deal with it. Electroshock's trying to run it deep, maybe get a little bit better tires coming through. But I think the GT4s, I mean, I don't think it could be any more mixed up. Of course, Skylar Vixen leading right now, but effectively, think if I had to take a guess, will be Oraz.
I think
But
it looks like Arez. Arez right now is down about possibly 25 seconds from the leader of GT4 at the moment, and pit
oh,
stop
then
Delta is
absolutely.
looking like around, between 40 to 50 seconds. So yeah, Arez right now looks like with the lead of GT4, and then we take a look at M2 here. I believe. Oh,
Ooh,
as we cut to an
incident from
incident
Taichi.
from Taichi. They just took some damage. I believe that was a BMW that got spun pretty hard. But as we were saying it, I think right now Harper is the one that still has the lead. Taichi was in there for third place, I believe, but that incident might prove to be detrimental in their efforts to try and get on podium for this race. But yes, Harper I think is the leader for our M2s.
Yeah, we'll still wait. We'll give it another 5 minutes and we'll check back in. But Taichi could very easily have run up through it. Harper looking like they've kept that car pretty clean, so very, very easily could be holding on to that lead battle. But you never know what's been going on in traffic. It's very easy to lose several seconds at a time. So it's really impossible to tell until you have these cars back out on track and fighting on merit with each other. But it is important to know that these cars are all running about the same relative pace. Taichi has actually currently got a fastest lap that is very equal with Harper, so I think it really just comes down to what the traffic has been doing with each other.
Meanwhile, look who it is. It's Wershow and Azure battling it out right now as they come through. I believe that is Graham Hill Bend coming to Cooper Straight. And as we can see, there comes a GT3 making it hard for Wershow coming around Surtees. Although that may have allowed them to get a nice exit there. But unfortunately, the traffic's not going to affect Azure that much as they come through Pilgrim's Drop. And this is the whole thing about traffic. Give it traffic, take it the way. As we see Taichi, seems like they went off the road over at turn 1 on Paddock Hill Bend just as a gaggle of cars end up right behind.
Yes, that's the worst time for that, but I'm seeing there very likely was contact between them. Was that with, actually, no, that was the contact with the GT3 we saw right when we tuned in with them, but it's a very awkward place to be because those are two cars battling for position in class behind them of Saber and Suzuka. That's actually one of our other battles on track as they're rolling through. In the GT3s, that's Pescetti and I believe Tiki just filing through is Taichi having to take a little bit of avoiding action as the GT3s roar on through. And then our GT3 leader or second place, one of our podium drivers, and Oily trying to filter through. So hard to follow with all this traffic going on. But that looks like it could be a very, very dangerous place for Taichi to be, especially with those two cars behind. And it looks like Asher going a little bit off track as the inside of the 406.
Oh!
And actually contact as Azure spun around from Zephyr, or not Suzuka, Wushel going around the outside. Cars all over the place, and Druids just trying to find a lane as there's a traffic jam just filling the circuit.
I think that was Zephyr. I think Zephyr dove in way too hard there and then manages to nail Azure Goat there. We're going to take another look at that replay, but wow, that was quite a lunge. So we're on board with Zephyr here as we see them coming down. As you're going to take a look at the right of the screen, you're going to see the M2s pop up. There they are. Comes in and just overcooks it. Manages to tap Azure. Yep, and there that goes. They spun around, saying hi to each other on track.
To say, of course, the most awkward part of that is that they're both just staring each other dead in the eyes as soon as that incident happens, as we see BMW on BMW, but wrong class, wrong place. So the GT4, I believe that is HDB. Oh, Lappy actually having a little bit of an incident, I think coming out of Druids there. And actually another car, the 75, is off track of Electroshock, who's just filtered through. The GT3s are having a mare of a race coming through, and that Porsche has been struggling. It looks like they may have just kind of had a little bit of an incident on their own as someone going a little off track and just kicking up some dirt. But my oh my, the chaos all over the racetrack. The pros still, of course, nose to tail. Suzuka is getting chased down by Saber, and I believe is that MNU directly behind them.
I think that's MNU. So this is a three-way battle for what I believe to be. Whoa! I think that was Saber in the corner a little bit too much. I think they're trying to go for P11 right now, but still close battle. And that slide, that was all MNU needed, as you can see now. Saber went from on the attack to on the defense. Now MN underscore trying to go, but then MN goes wide there.
Yeah, every single corner you have something new. And this is now, they're just fighting within their own class. I think this is the most free track we have seen on the circuit all race.
And then if
down that main straight.
We're going to go up here, line of Sturm, Taishi, Wursho, and RK right now, all fighting for P3. This is P3. There's classes. We see Taichi having a little bit of a moment, getting a little squirrely coming out of, I believe that was Hawthorne, coming into Westfield Bend here. So they're just trying to line up. I think they just want to keep it clean, because after all the chaos they've seen, I would want to just keep it clean too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, kudos to RK, who's made the charge from 18th on the grid all the ways up to currently fighting for the podium battles. Looks like they are able to get a run on Wushel, who had a little bit of an off track coming through, and are able to clear them coming in. But now Taichi has a brand new challenger coming down the main straight. Taichi having fought Wushel all race. Well, now the mirrors are going to be lit up by that neon yellow car. Believe a close, very similar to the TGR paint scheme, if not is a TGR paint scheme. Yeah, actually it says TIG Gang Racing right on the rear bumper there. So RK is really charging down to hound down their teammate. Taichi is going to be sweating bullets right here. They know what RK is capable of, is a dive from Zizu, who is taking the inside of Druids and pushing Wushel a little bit further back. Well, if they catch RK at a good time here, which I think they might well do, this could be very opportunistic for RK to take a look on Taichi as we roll down the Hawthorne straight, maybe around Hawthorne's Bend, because we know the pace difference isn't massive, but that GT4 will do a very good job of clearing that M2.
And as we hear the pit window now closing, I just want to point out RK being the textbook example right now of doing your best to keep it clean while involved in a minor incident, has gone up 15 positions overall. And in class, starting from P15 to now P4, knocking on the door of P3. If you want to know what consistency, keeping it on track, and keeping it clean will do for you, RK is a rolling example of that right now.
Started even farther back, actually, because we've lost a couple of our pro drivers, but regardless, it only bolsters the argument for what RK has done. As we see Snowdog rolling through in the background there. Our overall race leader is a slide from MNU, who has managed to sneak past Dipping Sauce, has now set his sights on Saber up ahead, and then Lappy, that's right after Druids. We've seen that be a problematic corner for the Lamborghini. I think there's some damage on the front end there, so maybe a little bit assisted if I had to take a guess. But that's quite a bit of damage.
I think they, oh, they're having trouble getting back on the road. I think what happened is they were coming through, I believe, Sheens and, no, that's not Sheens. I'm sorry, that's Graham Hill Bend. They were coming out of Druids, maybe overcooked it just a little bit on the exit and ran right into the wall.
Yeah, the Lamborghini seemed to spin up the tires quite easily there, but who knows? I mean, without someone watching each corner individually, I don't think it's possible to really even get a proper guess on what's going on. But what I can tell you is that 87 is going to be dealing with a lot of damage on the front end, ton of downforce loss. But MNU underscore is now under threat from Dipping Sauce coming through Paddock Hill Bend. We've seen a couple battles go through here, maybe a little bit wide from Dipping Sauce. He loses a bit of momentum, but keeps it on the inside there. Druids is going to immediately favor them as they go very deep under the brakes. Are they able to make it stick? MNU leaves enough space, and Dip makes that 38 M2 Cup car stick as now Swingley comes through to steal the inside of Graham Hill Bend, and just throws MNU just a little bit further back, gives that Dipping Sauce some breathing room.
That was a brave dive by Swingley there, coming into Graham Hill. I wouldn't have done that. So we see Swingley go wide. Oh, might have been squeezed by Dip there. Yeah, that's that move right there. When you go through Graham Hill, that's a tight corner. You do have all the exit, but to try and swing your way in there as they try another move. Oh, that was close going through Dip. And I think Swingley thinks better of it as backing out. We see MN go outside just a little bit. Swingley just manages to get by them, and that's all it is. We only have M2s here and one GT3, and it's just that difficult to get by drivers.
Yeah, and I think we had another accident too, as well, as I've seen both Lappy and also Windows or Wolfen have an incident. I think they're starting to get back up to speed, but oh my goodness, the race is kind of kicking off as we have two 3-car trains of M2s. Another one not far behind, actually, this group that we're watching with Vossi and Vex fighting each other as well. So the M2s are really keeping it competitive, somehow managed to stick with each other even through all of this chaos. And we talked about the draft being very, very important for these cars, and it will help them stick together. But it's really kind of induced a little bit of chaos as we roll over again to our podium battle. Simon Luck actually falling to Taichi, and that's going to allow Arcade to now fight for this tail position, or this rear guard position. It looks like Simon just holding the inside of Sterling's a little bit better, and it's going to set up a bad run as we run towards Clark Curve. Arcade looking for the inside. It's going to be a very hard corner for Simon to stick around the outside. Arcade taking that inside, but the momentum now shifts because Simon should have a better run down the straight. Paddock Hill, another right-hander, though, is going to favor the Tig Gang Racing driver as we roll through hard on the brakes. Arcade actually clears Simon Luck, so this is going to be a Tig Gang Racing P2 and 3 with their sights trying to set on a 1-2, but I think right now, just looking at it, 14 seconds down the road, Harper might be a little bit too far to reach. But looking through this field right now, it looks like we're sitting at about 3 cars for this podium battle.
I believe right now, as we were watching this, we had 3 separate incidents happen. One from, I believe, the number 47 of, I think that's... I'm actually not seeing them on the timing sheet anymore. I think that was Wolfen, and then the number 81 of HDDBC, and then I think the 529 as well as Lappy also. Oh, again, another spin, and just not having a very good day in that Lamborghini right now.
You'd have to imagine with all that damage, that car is near impossible to drive. It's already one of the trickier cars to drive in ACC, so with damage on that car, you can only imagine how quickly it can get away from you. It looks like actually maybe picked up the repairs on that, but still cold tires on a car that's already difficult to drive, easily unsettled by the bumps. That's going to add all sorts of challenges as we see Taichi followed by Arcade just trying to make that run to the podium in M2. Wushel trying to sneak their way in as we actually look like Simon Luck really falling back, possibly taking an early pit stop as these M2s can destroy the tires if you're too aggressive on them. So it looks like possibly an incident. Actually, they're wolfing in the 529. A little bit of an off track. Is this on Westfield?
Yeah, I think that's Westfield, and they're coming up to Sheen, so through Dingledale. Yeah, just making sure they rejoin. Oh, that was a little sketchy, but just manages to make it clean there. Yeah, it's at this point, you take a look at it, it's like you go off track. Can you keep your car straight, and can you keep it clean? It's like at this point, for of course some of our drivers here, it's not a matter of if I go off track, it's a matter of when. And you just got to make sure that you can handle it well. There's so many things that can go wrong as soon as your tires are touching anything but tarmac. As we're going to go back to RK here. RK now putting the pressure on Taichi. I think they're coming through what was just Pilgrim's Drop through Hawthorne, coming through Westfield Bend, and they're keeping it close. Now, we've had Taichi and RK have been pretty much neck and neck for a while, with Simon Luck that was in the middle of battle now falling behind. Now RK trying to get to P2 in their class, trying to gain one more position out of the already impressive hard charge that RK has had so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like Taichi might be able to hang on well enough. We never know what traffic will do. RK does seem to have a little bit of the pace advantage, but is it enough as Wushel now takes the inside of Simon? It looks like maybe a little bit of a bad exit from Oh goodness, they're 31. I'm mixed up on everything right now. So it looks like Wishel takes the inside of Paliku'i Ben, is able to clear Simon Luck, and it looks like gets a good enough exit coming down towards Druid. So they will keep that position on lock, maybe sneak their way back up to RK and Taichi with the help of traffic, or possibly just a little bit of pace. We'll see in the next couple minutes here as the 75 now looking to pull that battle apart a little bit more. Simon Luck actually not losing any time. Looks like that Porsche caught them at about the right time. Wishel might actually be the one to lose out here.
No, I think the number 75 is just being nice, playing well, not really racing anyone right now, just tucking in and going through, which is exactly what the number 75 is doing. And you know, when you race in traffic, you get to the point where in my class there's nobody behind me, there's nobody that far in front of me. You just take the line, give it to the slower car if you can, and just keep running. It's, you know, it's that courtesy that makes multi-class racing great through the competitors. And, you know, if you're not really racing anybody else, there's really nothing much to lose or gain.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And these M2s, again, they've done remarkably well to keep this together. Actually, it looks like we even have the GT4 battle starting to brew in the mid-pack as well. So a couple of these cars still sneaking together. But these M2s done remarkably well to really stick with it. And I think this podium battle is actually Taichi going a little bit wide. That's going to open up the door for RK. He clears them immediately on exit. That might actually fall them or pull them all the way back to Wishel, who's really closing in. But RK now from last place on the grid, again, believe P18 when we had all of our pro drivers connected, has now promoted themselves up all the way up to P2 in the course of an hour-long race here.
Yeah, and I mean, overall, I can't knock what he's doing. 17 places from the start of this race overall. That is an impressive display. Being able to string together lap after lap of just keeping it clean. And I'm willing to bet that RK has also have had the wherewithal to lift at a bunch of different times to give up some tenths and some time so that overall he keep his car going. And like at this point, the only person ahead of him is Harper, the leader. And I think he's going to be gunning him down.
Gunning him down, but he would have to be gaining by over a second a lap with 10 minutes left in the race and about a 15-second gap. I think it really would come down to some traffic assistance to cause that to close all the ways up. So realistically, this might be as much as RK could possibly achieve. I mean, even if there was an AM driver in that M2, I think that gap would still be a pretty insurmountable. As RK has done a remarkable job to get where they're at, but I think you'd really need some luck to get up to P1.
Oh, I think so too, but you know, the remarkable job is there. And as we're going to go ahead and check in on our GT3 leader right now, Snowdog. His Oil Rags is catching up. You can see Snowdog going a little wide. Oil Rags only a second and a half behind. May have a battle on our hands by the time we end this today. And then checking in on our GT4 field, I think it's Araz right now that's ahead on top with Zebras behind. As you can see, just heading into a bunch of M2 traffic right there. That's how you manage. Oh, gets held up. It gets held up pretty heavily by, I believe that was, I think that was a Suzuka, yes, in their M2. And I mean, I think overall it's still 13 seconds ahead of Zizor, so it's not going to affect things much, but if a couple of those string together, it could mean bad luck for them, but let's hope not. And then we come back,
absolutely,
and we come back checking on our pros here, and of course we have Harper in the lead right now, the pretty commanding about 18-second lead from RK, and so it is going to take some doing for Harper to fall back, but you never know, and especially what we've seen throughout the majority of this race, it could just be one bad turn from another driver.
Oh, you already saw a big slide come from Harper through Sheen Curve there, so and maybe a couple more of those, the rear tires fall off and the car becomes a bit of a shopping trolley in terms of how it handles, but we'll see in due time. Of course, everything will sort itself out, and we see a lot of the gaps ebb and flow. I've seen a couple times some GT4s.
Oh, there was a big incident with Snowdog, our leader. I think it was Snowdog and Weiss. They came together, and now Oil Rags has the lead. Oh my goodness, I think Snowdog may have some damage from that. I'm going to go ahead and take a look. Oh, as Snowdog tries to get around, I think another damaged BMW GT3 right there. Oh, that's exactly what we were talking about here. about what happened. We're going to take a look and see what exactly happened with Snowdog there. Snowdog had the lead coming in. As you can see, coming down, I believe that is Pilgrim's Drop. Right behind was, I believe, Oil Rags there. And yeah, that's Reese up ahead. I wonder if they were overslowed by Azure. And yeah, they made contact. And that hits the wall. No, that's frustrating, especially when something like that happens and you're doing so well with 7 minutes to go. As we take a look, I think HDDBC had a little bit of a moment, and Surtees in the middle of the track just trying to get it back. Oh, I think that was Oil Rags just passing through. It was. So again, you never know what can happen. There you can see in the back of your screen, that's Snowdog coming up over the crest, going through Pilgrim's Drop, and it's not over yet, folks, as we go down. And I think RK and Wurschel and Taichi, three-way battle for P2. They're side by side coming in through. I believe that's Sheen's.
Oh, and a bit of an over-under from RK, trying to take the inside to the outside and back to the inside of Sterling's. You can see that car sliding everywhere as these tires have really been wrung to the end of their lives. These M2s really eat through their tires around the outside of Clark. Don't think they'll be able to make it stick, but early on the power might be able to get a run. Simon, of course, looking for a bit of a look on the inside, now looking to the outside, but to the inside goes our overall race leader of Oily Rags, who's now going to try to make a dive into turn 1. Does this open up the door for RK?
Oh, it gets slowed down,
but
almost makes contact.
A little bit of touch, but that's going to still, Wurschel still far enough ahead, so RK is going to have to fill this in through the natural course of the race, but some GT3 traffic is really coming through at probably the worst time if you're Wurschel, best time if you're RK to try to make a move back. But I think it's worth noting too, RK was in P2 and running away, so possibly an incident pulled them back. Hard to tell if they took more damage with how that car's been all race, but man, RK having a up and down roller coaster of this race as we run towards Hawthorne's, and running out of track is the 529, just trying to find a gap and having to back out and just let these cars roll through around the outside of Hawthorne's. I don't think they're going to find anything but over under into Westfield as the Ferrari's trying to make it 3 wide into Westfield. We saw an incident here last lap in contact. The Ferrari's around Snowy having to back out in almost another big collision as the 529 of Wolfen gets spun around by the slower class car in front of or behind them.
Oh, wow. Well, what a turn of events there. And as you can see right now, as we look at Wurschel, that was Snowdog behind that entire sequence. And I could only imagine after having that incident and coming back there, it's even more frustrating being stuck behind the M2s, especially when you're going for the lead. And it looks like Oil Rags manages to get up there within 10 seconds past Snowdog, and it's looking comfortably in hand, but we still never know. That was one hairy moment, and thankfully it looks like actually no, I haven't seen him move out yet, or he tried. I think Wolfen's having trouble getting the Ferrari going again.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it early in the race. Sometimes it's just near impossible to find that gap, as it looks like Sarah off in the background there through Sheen Curve. A little bit of an incident, but I mean, it's worth noting Snowdog had like a 5-second gap when their incident occurred and now dropped to a 10-second deficit almost. So Snowdog really going to be kicking himself for that. Nothing really he could do as that 529 has to have some major damage as we roll through. And now side by side goes RK and Simon. So I think RK got slowed up a little bit by some traffic. Is now 4 BMWs in one picture, one in the wrong class, as RK is trying to make a fight back for that podium position. Maybe a little bit wide. This could open up the door for Wurschel. It's going to be seeing the M4 of whoever that is, HDD.
I think that's HDD.
Their way through. Wurschel now putting pressure on the back of RK. Possibly that strategy that pushed RK all the ways up to the top of the pack, maybe starting to come back and bite them as the pace has started to fall off. The consistency maybe being a little bit of a struggle as HDD's going a little bit wide, now causing a little bit of trouble for Simon. This should let RK catch back up a little bit. In fact, might even compromise them completely as we roll onto the main straight and now Simon's lost all of his momentum as we roll through.
They're 3 wide.
And 3 wide onto the main straight as Biscotti's trying to sneak away through, and up the inside goes RK. No, not able to sneak in a nose, but Simon just able to keep the momentum, maybe touching a little bit of gravel on the outside. And once again, even with 2 minutes left in the race, Wusho goes around the outside. All of this traffic just kicking up drama after drama, even with the closest battles on race.
As we can see, we're on board now with Simon Luck. I mean, that entire sequence was started by, I believe, that GT3 AMG coming through there in the Mercedes. And that's all it takes, really, for all of these guys to come together. As I think there was an incident between Skylar and Snowdog. As you can see, Snowdog back there spun.
No.
Oh, and falling down. Now Derg just luckily picking up a place there as Snowdog has, I think, made contact with it. We're going to try and see if we can take a look at exactly what happened. Let's see. So there's Snowdog in your picture there. And then there's the Camaro of, I believe that was, let's see, the number 87, I believe? Oh, just... Oh! No, that's the number 660 there. And it looks like they dipped too far outside there and then overcorrected, come in and just ran into the Camaro. That's an unfortunate incident.
That is the worst kind of instant. You just get hyper fixated on the car in front of you, drop a tire on the inside, lose all your traction, and it's just over from there. Skylar, really the innocent victim there, didn't really do anything wrong, ran her line perfectly. And unfortunately, Snow just losing the rear end there. But, oh my goodness, what a change of events from Snowdog holding quite a strong lead at the 10-minute mark of this race and almost looking certain to bring it home, to the chaos of traffic now knocking them down 25 seconds off the lead with damage, and Durg sneaking their way up into second place as well, while Pescetti is now trying to make a charge up to fill out maybe 8th place in GT3, maybe avoid a little bit of chaos throughout the rest of this race as well.
Oh, I see. I think Oil Rags is slowed through GT4 coming through there. You never know, but right now, coming into, I believe this is going to be the white flag. So we got 10 seconds remaining. So yeah, this is it. Oil Rags coming around the final time here today. Just has to hang on a commanding lead of around 19 seconds to Durgan back, and then can bring home the first win of this multi-class madness series.
And I think going back, or M2 battles kick back off again as Arcade's actually snuck their way back past Simon, going back down the order, and Wushel's also putting a lot of pressure on them. They have another lap as they're going through clearways right now, going towards Clark Curve. Possibly Wushel looking for a move on the inside. Yes, is Simon going to be able to keep the momentum going through as they are... Not even a piece of paper could have separated those two as they roll down to Paddock Hill for what will be their final lap of the race. And once again, the M2 is never failing to disappoint, rolling through turn 1. No traffic looking like it will interrupt these two. I don't think anyone is close enough to get onto the back end of these M2s, as inside of Druids goes Wushel and sending the S-Car car around the outside, going down to Graham Hill Bend, maybe keeping the momentum, but no, Simon's not able to keep enough momentum to stick close enough by. Wushel is able to get that.
And we're going to come back to them in a moment. We see Oil Rags here coming through right now. Looks like the final straight at Brabham coming down the line to take the first race of this series, as we then go back to RK and Worshel.
Yes, and going back down to Hawthorne straight, it looks like the 75 Electroshock has caused a little bit of chaos here, and Simons fell back quite a bit, I think, due to that traffic. But 2 GT3s here could very easily upset the order of things. We've seen them unsettle the M2s quite a bit, even have contact as we run through Dingledale. It looks like Electroshock's going to be quite well behaved running through the M2s. But still, the Lamborghini, as Wushel's going a little bit wide. It looks like Lappy still has to navigate through, sticking behind the M2. That could have been an opportunity for Simon to get back up to the rear end of the 69, but no. It looks like no dice, as Harper is going to bring home the win in the M2s to a gap of,
I believe, sitting at around, where's Taichi here on my
Looks
time machine?
like
Almost
20 seconds. Looks like about 20 seconds around there. As we take a look at Ares here, still actually on their lap here. Nearly the rest of the field is finished. I think Ares was just 2 laps behind the leader, just passed, and so they're going to come in and take the win in the Silver's GT4. Wow, what a finish to this race. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I certainly am gonna need a nap after that. That's a what a chaotic race. As every single corner there was something going on. I kind of look forward to the Grand Prix tracks, maybe being a little bit more tame and giving me a chance to catch my breath because what a chaotic series of events. Indianapolis will be probably just as much. It's quite a narrow track for a Grand Prix circuit. And then Silverstone and Coda, of course, playing their natural course in the Grand Prix circuit series. But a good run from Oily Rags. We saw some drama late for Snowdog, who looked like they were poised to take that home. Unfortunately, dropping to just the bottom step of the podium, still finishing in the top 3. So a good result from the 919, but I know not the result that they would have been hoping for. Of course, Oraz coming through. We saw that Janetta proving to be a little bit of the favorite early in qualifying. They were able to convert it in the race, keeping their nose clean, followed by Sauce Dragon and Skylar Vixen, who we saw quite a very, very chaotic race actually from Skylar, who managed to finish in that P3 spot in class. So good on her. And then, of course, going down the order, Harper Jackson taking home the win, who very, very uneventful race for the 115, I have to say, considering how chaotic this was. And Taichi able to duke out RK, Simon Luck, and Wushel to take P2. RK finishing in that final 3rd spot. To TGR coming home with a nice 2-3 finish outside of that M2 class.
Yes, and then, overall, the racing, of course, especially to the M2s and everything else there, I mean, you couldn't have gotten much better than that. I mean, there was a lot of good moments, just specifically through Wushel, RK, and I believe that was Simon Luck as well. I mean, just they let it all hang out on the line there, and I mean, it was quite a battle for top 5 there, and especially now Taichi, coming up through. But I got to give a special mention to Harper. I mean, just managing to hold on makes it pretty much look easy out there as they come across and they win their division. So we're gonna go back and do it for our AM class here. Oil Rags here taking the inaugural win here and the overall win, and coming in first with their V8 Vantage MR Aston Martin. Well done to them. The Blue 8 Derg in their 870 Ferrari 296 in second, and Snowdog rounding out your top 3 with the Porsche 992 GT3 and the 919. Going back to your GT4 class, RS taking the win there in their Janetta 406. Well done to them. And then Zzorce with their Mercedes AMG number 6. And then rounding out the top 3, Sauce Dragon in 3rd with their GT4 Mercedes AMG number 73 driver. Putting on a decent display today. Couple of incidents there, but manages to get a podium in their class from it. And then finally going in through our pro drivers here in the M2, you got Harper, of course, taking their lead in their BMW 115. Of course, all of these are BMW's M2s, excuse me. Then you have Tig Gangs Racing's Taichi coming in with their number 32 BMW. And then finally, RK rounding out their top 3 in the podium with their number 25 BMW. What a race. What a race.
Yeah, we still have 3 more of these to go. Of course, we'll be taking on our next race in 2 weeks' time. So that will be coming around the 19th. I can't do math. It will be coming around May 19th at the same time in Indianapolis. So another chaotic race to come in 2 weeks' time. Very much look forward to it. I think we'll see some more battles kind of emerge in that mid-pack as well. Brands Hatch was really always going to be a trial by fire and really always going to be a track decided a lot more by your traffic management than pace. But I think Indianapolis will play some really, really interesting part in our battles here, especially as there's going to be a lot of long corners. I think you'll be able to see the pace difference in those cars open up a lot more as well.
What do you think for your driver of the day? There was a lot out here today, but if you had to pick one, who'd it be?
I mean, it's hard to not say RK running back from 17th, 18th, which however many cars we had right at the start, all the ways up to P3, was battling for P2, even at a time had P2 until traffic disrupted them a little bit. it would have to either be between them or Harper, who really kept their nose clean the entire race. I mean, every other person we saw have some kind of moment or scare, had to recover their race in some way. But I think overall maybe Harper, but in the race alone, I think RK put on a really good show as well.
I would have to agree. I mean, you even with the minor incident I believe RK was involved in, as we saw their front end was damaged, to be able to pull a drive like that, to be able to come from last place in your class to go all the way up to second and then back to third, especially with all the traffic in there, it takes some exceptional ability to do that, and RK displayed that today.
Yeah, absolutely. And on a tight track like this, where 2 wide already feels too tight, and 3 wide happened way more often than I think our drivers would have wanted. I think it was a well put together drive to be able to keep that car together for the end of the race.
Well, that'll do it for today's broadcast. I've been Paliku'i Grant along with Plasma, and you were watching the Multi-Class Madness series from Simufur. We hope to catch you in a couple weeks' time as we come back again to have more Multi-Class Madness action. We'll see you guys next time.